Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Monday topics for ADHD counseling in the Roanoke Valley. I'm Gabriel. I am the clinician, the counselor, the therapist at ADHD Counseling in the Roanoke Valley. And today, like we do every Monday at noon, we're going to answer some questions. But first, we're going to talk about a topic specific to ADHD. And that topic was suggested by someone that commented in a post that I made a couple weeks ago. So it's a very good question, and actually one that kind of comes up. So it's interesting. I'll have conversations with clients or clients' parents that have questions, very specific questions. And then before I do my Facebook Live, before I do these, I'll have someone else ask the exact same question. So it's kind of interesting. It must be out in the ether that some of these questions need answers, or all of our ADHDers are having the same issues at the same time. So that's cool. So today our topic is going to be on what accommodations I had when I was in school. I actually didn't have any accommodations at all. The only one that is coming to mind was it was suggested that I take tests using, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a study nook. And what we ended up doing was getting like a 3-part trifold poster board. So one that you would use for science projects. So there'd be one side, and one side. And we put that on my desk when I took tests to kind of lean in, kind of have blinders on and take my tests. That lasted for about a month because I ended up like drawing pictures and putting stickers on the inside and kind of getting distracted even more. However, that was more of an issue of me. That didn't work for me, I don't think. I think it had probably had more, if I had like headphones, that probably would have been better. It wasn't so much just something caught my eye, I would look. It would be more if I heard something, I would look. So even today, on that same note, when I work, I have headphones in. Even if I'm home alone, I'll put headphones in, or I'll put music on really loud. So I have like a Bluetooth speaker in the other room. I'll sync that up with my phone and play some classical music, some movie soundtracks, pretty loud, and that kind of helps focus my attention. But anyways, as far as other accommodations, I didn't really have any. There was never anything that ADHD at the time was just not something that a lot of people knew about or even had ideas to kind of make accommodations. So I just didn't have any. No one thought to give me any. And no one probably knew what the issues were to even suggest good accommodations. A second part to that is that I did not go to public schools. I went to public schools my last year of middle school and then all through high school. And I did not have any accommodations then. Then, prior to that, I was in private schools because if you missed the podcast last week with my mom, you know that we moved to Montreal. We moved to Canada. And so I went to private schools there. I don't know why we ended up going to private schools, but I did. Which was kind of a blessing and a curse. It was a private school, so it was very nice. The teachers had smaller classrooms, better attention. However, the education system in Canada is very rigorous, to the point where when I kind of got back here, even though I had ADHD and attention issues and all the issues that we do have as ADHDers, school was kind of a joke. It wasn't really that hard. No one was really demanding of anything. I remember I could get by without studying for anything and kind of maintaining like C's and B's, which was, help my parents be happy. I was happy. No one was on my back, and that worked out for me, as a teenager. So those latter years, I did, go to public schools, no accommodations. I was pretty heavily medicated at the time, in middle school, and then freshman and sophomore year. pretty heavily medicated, so I didn't really need any accommodations. I was pretty much horse with blinders on, too much, to the point where I kind of described at the time as me being like a zombie. I didn't really have any friends. I had like two friends, and that's it. Didn't talk to anyone in class. Didn't have any friends, didn't talk to anyone, nothing. So that was, kind of a double-edged sword. So I didn't need any accommodations because I was just kind of laser focused on one thing. So let's kind of see what other questions we can get. So like I said, someone commented a bunch of questions, so I'm making sure I answer them. Public schools, last couple of years, I did go to public schools. Any accommodations, no accommodations, but so this is kind of comes up in the sessions I had earlier this week. Recommendations for accommodations. I would say the school is probably going to have some standards that ADHDers need, or they think that all ADHDers need. And more often than not, they may be helpful. However, you need to advocate for your child to make sure they have the accommodations that are best for them. So the accommodation that I had was, I think they were the school suggesting extra time on tests, which is kind of like the gold standard of not the gold standard. It's kind of the lazy thing that schools do is, you're an ADHDer, you're going to get distracted, so let's give you more time on your test, which is kind of dumb. I don't know why they do that, because it's not that we need more time because we're not as intelligent or anything else. It's we're going to get distracted, and then we're going to drift away, and then we need to come back and kind of ramp up again to get that momentum again to answer or finish the test. But that doesn't really solve the issue. Doesn't really address the issue. The issue is we're getting distracted. So to me, a better accommodation would be just put me in a room alone and I'll do the test like that. Or let me listen to music while I am taking this test. Like, let me listen to some classical music while I do this test. They're noise canceling. I can't hear the other kids doing their work. Turn my desk away from everyone else so that I can't see everyone else finishing the test before me. And then I don't have that anxiety of like, oh man, everyone's going to think I'm stupid. Everyone's going to think I'm dumb because I'm not answering or I'm not getting done with this test as fast as everyone else. And then there's no self-conscious. And then it's not like this long thought process of everyone's going to think that I'm, you're welcome, Bethany. Everyone's going to think that I'm anxious everyone's going to think that I don't know the material. Everyone's going to think I'm dumb. Everyone's going to think I'm stupid because this is the story that I've been telling myself. So it must be what everyone else is thinking of me right now. So if we can turn our desk away from everyone, we can't see, and because we have headphones, we can't hear what everyone else is doing. So then we're not anxious or distracted by what everyone else is thinking that we're doing. Hope that makes sense. So make sure the accommodations fit what the issue is. And I would almost, now that I'm talking about it out loud, I would almost suggest never give the ADHDer more time because it doesn't address the issue. The issue is we're distracted, so let's take away the things that are distracting us, which could be something like put me in a room alone and I'll just be able to focus on myself, not worrying about what everyone else is doing, and I can just go from there. Here's a prime example. When I was in private school, so not everything in private schools are I know there's kind of a stigma about that. But I did have there was an accommodation, when I was in seventh grade in Montreal. I did have extra time on, two of my tests. One of them was, my algebra test or math test. I don't remember what it was, when I was still in Montreal. And so I got extra time for the test. Everyone finished, and I had a lot of good friends, and they all kind of knew that I had ADHD, so it was like, Gabriel needs extra time, whatever, who cares? So when I was the last person to the test, I knew I had an extra 30 minutes to do the test. So what happened was, as I'm doing the test, the proctor was sitting next to me, just kind of doing his own thing, just checking on me, and one of the teachers came in, and so I'm at my desk. There's a desk here, and there's a desk here. My proctor's sitting here, and the other teacher comes in and sits right here. And in my last 30 minutes of the test, they start talking over me. Now, all the time in the world, you could have given me 24 hours to finish the test and the book with all the answers in it. There is not a chance in hell that I would have passed that exam. And I'm pretty sure I failed it because I think I still had like a few pages to go. And it was just like, obviously, they're talking over me, not whispering, like talking like I'm talking right now. I can't concentrate to save myself and do this exam. And I remember just kind of circling answers, turning it in, because it was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this. As distracted as I am by you guys talking. So extra time isn't the issue. The issue should have been be in a room alone. No one can come in the room and you can do the exam like that. So make sure the accommodation fits your child. Because if it doesn't, what's the point? And I know the mentality of schools can be, well, we're giving you the accommodations, so not be happy with them, but this will help the problem, or this will solve the problem. It may not, but that's not the issue. And to kind of beat this point over the head is extra time may not be helpful whatsoever. So advocate for your child. I don't think they need extra time. Is you could say they don't need extra time. They know the information. It's not like they don't know the information. Their issue is being distracted, or their issue, their issue may be recalling that information. So it's not so much extra time. It's they need to be alone. Can they have headphones and be in the room? And the teacher can administer the whatever device they're going to use to listen. The teacher can administer that to them before the test starts. They can put that on and go to town, or whatever. So, like I said, it kind of depends on your child's issues or what your child struggles with. The last thing that I want to talk about is making sure, and this is something that I try really hard to do with all my ADHDers, is making sure they know what these accommodations actually are. And they're not, it's not so much an accommodation of you need an accommodation because you're dumb or because you're not intelligent, which can be their story in their head. That can be the narration that they have, or it can be the ideas that, or the stories that they think other people have of them. The accommodations are there because the school system is not set up for ADHDers to be successful. Now that's pretty blunt and that's pretty aggressive, but it's just not. When you have 30 kids in a classroom in a public school, that's not conducive to the way that we need to learn, and that's not conducive to retention because there's so much going on. And then even just taking tests, it's not set up in a way that we can showcase what we know. And I think that's really, really important, getting that across to the child. This is not an issue of you not being smart. This is an issue of us trying to tip the scale because the school's not set up for you to win. It would be no different. The quote that I always use is Albert Einstein's. If you judge every animal by how well they can climb a tree, you'll be disappointed with the fish, right? Our ADHDers are those fish. Everyone else is a monkey. And so it's not that you can't climb a tree. It's just you need to be in an environment. Maybe that's not the best example, but you get the idea. We need to put them in a position where they can showcase their knowledge and their understanding. And without the accommodations, they may not be able to do that. It's kind of like the metaphor that I use with Superman in the background. If Superman has kryptonite around his neck, he cannot be Superman. He cannot use his powers, no matter how much he just wills it to happen, okay? If he needs to fly and save someone with kryptonite around his neck, he's not going to be able to do it. It's not a matter of, I'll just try and think harder to fly. He just can't. He just can't do that. It's the same thing for ADHDers. If we need to be in a position where we can showcase our strengths, we need to have accommodations, as the school calls them, to be able to do that. It's not a crutch. It's just a platform where we can showcase our strengths. And I think the last question, unless anyone has any other questions, is what worked best for you to stay focused and complete tasks on your own? To stay focused, well, I was medicated for one, which I guess helped. I mean, it did help. Whether or not it helped me as a human being and as a person and being able to socialize and make friends and things like that is another story. But what helped me to stay focused and complete tasks? Like I said in last week's video episode, whatever you want to call it, I had a tutor for like 6 years while I was in Montreal. And sometimes I saw her once a week, sometimes I saw her twice a week for like an hour and a half to 2 hours almost. And that's how I completed tasks. Was I had someone there, touching me, tapping me, guiding my line of sight to the paperwork. Kind of, if I slowed down, that momentum kind of wasn't there. She was there trying to help me stay back on task. Because it wasn't an issue of, sometimes it was in the case of math, because it usually wasn't a case of, I don't know how to do this, or I'm dumb. It was, I'm being distracted, or this is not stimulating me enough for me to get through it, because it's boring. For the ADHDer, it's boring. In terms of doing it now, staying focused and staying on task, caffeine helps. I know that's kind of a weird thing, especially if you have young kids, but for your older kids, caffeine is a stimulant. Caffeine really helps focus that attention. And when I was in my undergraduate, if I had to write a really long philosophy papers, I have a minor in philosophy, I would go to a library. I basically conditioned myself to kind of get into a state of hyper focus so I could get all my work done. So this is a great tip, and I'm just popped in my head. So staying focused and completing tasks. What is very, very helpful is conditioning the ADHDer to click on when they need to. Okay. The best and easiest way to do that is to condition them to know when I'm in a certain place or in a certain position, I can click on. So we'll use the example of Pavlov and his dogs. Everyone knows the story about Pavlov and his dogs. So Pavlov was a scientist, and he would ring a bell and then feed his dogs. Ring a bell, feed his dogs. He did this enough where when he rang the bell, even if there was a delay between the time that he rang it and he fed the dogs would salivate. That was their response of, oh, the bell means I know I'm getting food. And even when he didn't feed them, they would still salivate because they were hungry or because they knew food is coming. Now, to kind of talk about this for us, I don't know, it may, to your parents, it may seem, I don't know, to use that example for your kids. I do it with myself, so it's not really that big of an issue. I'm in this office, I'm in this room. This camera is on a standing desk that faces a wall. There's a window to my right that I usually have closed because if I look out the window, then I'm going to get distracted. So there's nothing that I can see. When I'm at this desk, it is time to work. Now back to my undergrad story. When I was in undergrad writing my philosophy papers, I would go to the library. At the bottom of the library, the first floor of the library, there's a Starbucks. I would get a cup of coffee. I would go get in the elevator, go up to the third floor, and I would take the same path to the same study cubby to write my papers. And I would have my cup of coffee. I would take the same path, and see, I'm conditioning myself. Each one of these things is kind of like a step or a bell towards, all right, it's time to start clicking on. And the first couple times, it didn't work. But after a full semester of doing this, every time I needed to write like a 1,000-word essay or a 5 to 10-page essay for my philosophy minor, I would click on. So by the end of the semester, when I needed to write my final exam or final paper, I would do this same process: walk down the same hall, turn down the same corridor, go out to the same cubby, sit down, headphones in, music, coffee, drink the coffee. That's that stimulant. And now I'm in the same cubby. And my brain recognizes, okay, when I'm here, it is time to work. Okay. So I heavily advocate to my parents to have their ADHDers work in the same spot every time, and not have that spot be for something else. Okay, so the kitchen table is not a great time because it's the brain's like, is it time to eat or is it time to work? So have a very, very specific place, chair, desk, whatever. So when they sit there, their brain knows, okay, it's time to do X. It's time to do homework. And that eventually will condition the ADHDer to know that it's time to do that. Same thing kind of goes for sleep, by the way. If you're reading in bed or watching TV in bed, your brain doesn't know what it's supposed to be doing. And then it doesn't fall asleep. It thinks it's time for something else. But I digress. So I would say what helped me stay focused in complete tasks was setting up conditions where my brain just knew it was time to do X. And if we wanted to, I don't know how long we've been going, but if we want to kind of get into it, the next point or another point is we want to limit how much executive functioning the ADHDer is doing, because we have a finite amount of executive functioning. I usually call it executive functioning points, which is decision making. What I'm going to have for breakfast? What am I going to wear today? How am I going to get to work? How am I going to do this test? Okay, I need to talk to this friend. I need to do this homework assignment. We have a finite amount, and because we get so distracted, those executive functioning points get used up a lot faster than the average person. So if we can set up a place where we know it's time to do homework, where we know it's time to take a test or whatever, then that's not that many more executive functioning points that we're using to make decisions or do things. We just know that when I'm here, it's time to do X. So I would apply that to, try to apply that to everything that your ADHDer does. When it's time to do the homework, when it's time to do the test. And again, having those accommodations of the headphones, maybe the cubby, the taking the desk and making them put it against the wall so they can't see everyone. All of those things, if they do them in the same way, in the same order, can be those little Pavlovian bells that triggers the brain. Okay, it's time to do X, Y, or Z. Hopefully it's just one of those things, but depending on the situation, it could be different. So I know that was a lot. If you have questions about conditioning your ADHDer, let me know. Like I said, I condition myself to be able to kind of turn on when I need to, and that helps me get stuff done so much faster than trying to do anything else, trying to do it a different way or trying to work in a different space every time that I need to get something done. So if you have questions about conditioning, let me know. If you have questions about accommodations, let me know. If you have questions about anything I talked about in the video, comment below. I'll get it. And if I don't comment the answer back to you, I'll answer it in next Monday's Q&A video. So if you have questions about anything at all, let me know, and I'll get you the answer. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in.